They're great. All right, let's do one more. What do you got, Copster?
Well, speaking of comedians, Alex Cavanis, if I'm saying that correctly, he says, "Who is the hardest comic you ever had to follow on stage?"
I mean, I would probably say Rogan, only because I've done it. I did it a few times at the Comedy Store, and the Stone one was the worst. And I actually liked to challenge myself afterwards too, because he would do like sometimes an hour and 15, sometimes 2 hours, right? And I would go up and I'd want to challenge myself every single time, because he's very high energy, like intense, and you got to be able to match that, and also be able to. Not everybody has to match that. I mean, there are other comedians that have a very different approach to follow him and still are able to do it masterfully. So I liked to challenge myself after he went up, so I could do it. So he hardest, but also most rewarding.
Yeah, Rogan's tough. Not to lump them together, but Mencia's tough for the same kind of reason, is that it's a very high energy, intense performance that probably just went on for an hour.
Why do you say not to lump them together?
Because Carlos Mencia stole Joe Rogan's jokes.
Not just his. Not even his. Yeah, and well, it's
I'm
like
not in that world.
Well, no,
so
but there's a video that like Rogan. Rogan challenged Mencia on stage at the Comedy Show in 2006.
Called him out, yeah,
and it was like this big thing.
And,
wow.
Rogan's tough. Rick Ingraham is a fun challenge. Dane's pretty tough, but I think the hardest guy to follow, I had to do it 3 nights in a row, 2 at the Comedy Store, 1 at the Improv, was Rock, when he was working on his first Oscars.
Right, I remember that.
So,
I was in the studio. I was in the audience for that one at the store.
Are these hard because they're so good, or it's hard because?
Well, there's both. Chris Rock is a little different. I mean, because obviously it's Chris Rock, but the other thing is too, when it's a normal night where these comedians, that people come to the Comedy Store, they're going to pay for a night of comedy, right? So they're going to see people that they don't know, but they're just going to give me, all right, I'm giving you the opportunity to make me laugh here. So all right, I'm going to give you respect, and they do that, and they leave going, oh man, that Sebastian guy, that Mark Ellis guy, they were really funny if they don't know who they were, right? At the time, Sebastian, a lot more well-known now. But Chris Rock comes in, and right away, whether it's Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, Dane Cook, whoever it is, they come in, and they get that applause right up the bat. They don't have to do shit up top of the first, minute, because their reputation precedes them. So there you go. And then, so that right away is hard to follow. But then, if it's a good set, especially practicing for an Oscar set, then here comes Mark Ellis. Well, I just saw Chris Rock practicing with the Oscars. What are you going to do?
Literally, who the hell is this guy? The actual, I was talking with this, funny enough, with D'Elia at the store a couple weeks ago. Like the all-time hardest comics that we ever had to follow. Because D'Elia's tough to follow, too.
Well, it's funny for me.
Caparulo, we both agreed that Caparulo, when he was at the Comedy Store, there's nobody harder to follow than John Caparulo.
Caparulo, I agree with. D'Elia, I think it's harder for me to say, because he and I was doing stuff with him and before him. We used to do the Ha-Ha together. So we used to do gigs together all of the time. So I would go up before him, he would go up after me. It was never a problem to follow him, and I don't know. And same for him with me. We would go same together all the time. Now, fast forward to today, the guy's a monster to where he's performing all the time. So who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, Caparulo, I agree with, because Sebastian, if Sebastian's really on fire. It just
Sebastian
depends.
gets close, but he's a different kind of energy.
Yeah.
Where Cap, it's so quick, and his voice and the way that he hits jokes.
Yeah.
Like he probably has had the best sets I've ever seen at the Comedy Store.
See, I would say Sebastian, to me, I've seen actually the best set I've ever seen, that no one ever see the light of day.
Jim Painter?
Ever. Jim Painter, so this guy, legend, Comedy Store legend, dressed up. So there was, if you listen to the Howard Stern show, there was this woman, the late Blue Iris, who... She was great. It was just like a 70-year-old porn star, right? And she would do comedy, quotes, and James Painter did this whole dressed up thing as Blue Painter. And he did these jokes, but no one saw it coming. He dressed up in this dress, went up in front of everybody. I had the audio on this little shitty recorder he used to record jokes onto, and I never heard. There's one joke he told, and I know it, but I won't say it on air now. But and it was so crass, and it was so, the way he delivered it in his voice. Caparulo, Sebastian, Steve Simone, Brett Ernst, Renazizi, everybody was just in stitches from this one joke. I timed it. Remember we listened to it? I think it was like 45 seconds to where screaming laughter.
Painter was the guy. He worked the door of the Comedy Store for a long time. I think he eventually did get made a paid regular when he started doing like Blue Painter and other stuff. That I wasn't as big a fan of just watching him go up and just like he was the comic that of all the comics I've ever seen. Every other comic at the Comedy Store that was there, when he goes on stage, you had to run in and watch what he's
because
doing.
You never knew what he was going to say.
Holtzman's like that. Pepitone is a little bit like that. Yeah.
Is it easy or hard to follow somebody who sucks?
That's what I always found it really hard sometimes if the room was so hot. Because there was a couple, like Rob Lindo's Skinny Sundays, and I'll never say the guy's name, but there was a comic that was on every show, and because he produced it with Lindo, and
he ate it.
I mean, you would go into the warmest improv on a Sunday night, and you could do 15 minutes of decent comedy and destroy, and this guy would bring a room to a silence.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's the same thing. I liked that challenge because it happened a lot. We used to perform at Room 5 a lot, and like it was like 3 days a week we performed at this place, and there were a lot of people that weren't that great that were going up there. So the way I always looked at it is, all right, they just brought it to a halt. So I got to look at it as if I'm starting the show now.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how I'd always approach it. And then if I could then set up the next comedian, okay, I got him back for you now. That was always the challenge for me. It's okay, they just killed the whole atmosphere. Now I'm going to set the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And it was fun.
I think younger comics, the first skill you learn is how to follow somebody that sucks. Because you're doing a lot of open mics, and there's just not a lot of great, comedy on a nightly basis. So you learn how to do that, how to like revive a room. But now, when you're following more established comics that people have heard of, and you don't know when you're going up on the lineup, like I really don't care either way. It's like it's a challenge either way, and it's a fun test. So it's like if you're asking me which course I would rather play golf at, like I just want to play golf.
Yeah, that's it. This reminds me of this conversation.
We're not playing golf today, Josh.
No, we're not. But this
how dare you tease me?
This conversation actually reminds me too, because I you know this. So Bert Kreischer, again, very funny comedian.
His special just came out on Netflix.
It just came out on Netflix, and so Bert Kreischer always tells a story about me on every show that he's on all the time, right? So he was a Florida State guy, and so Bert and I was doing stand up at this group for a little bit, and that Potbellies was the name of this bar, and so Bert was coming in to do stand up for the first time ever. And he had brought a whole bunch of his buddies and everything too, because he had that article that came out in Florida State.
Because he was who Van Wilder is the character is based on. Yeah.
Yes. So I saw him, and because and even there weren't even, I would say, professional comedians, but comedians are protective over having the best set or being the funniest one in the room, right? And so this group that I was with at the time, they weren't really talking to Bert. They figured that it was just like it was a charity thing. Here's the guy that they did this article on, and I was like, oh, the guy might be funny, So I walked over to him. He was drinking. And I was like, dude, I can tell you right now, not a great idea to drink right before your set, because we're gonna rely on it. Because the reason I said that, because the second time I ever did stand up in Tallahassee, I got so hammered I fell off the stage. Like I got so hammered because I was so
Is that
energetic.
a true story? Like you legitimately fell off?
Not fell off because I was like stumbling like a drunk, but I was very
animated,
active, and like I was so like didn't have everything about me, so I went off the back of the thing, but I still played it off like it was a bit. But
Did that give you laughs?
No, because it was in this weird restaurant, so it was just a very bizarre situation anyway. But it was the point was it made me say drinking is a bad idea to do this, and I had this conversation with him, and he tells the story all the time because he said he kept it with him and he did it. So the reason I bring this up is I also want, because he keeps saying, and I love Bert, but he's like he DMs me, he's like, I want you on the show to tell the story. I was like, let's do it, and I never hear from the guy. So do me a favor, like, just this one time I do want you to do like the celebrity thing.
Tweet a celebrity.
Tweet at Bert Kreischer and say either Bert, you come on Collider Live, or
tell
get
him
Kristian
you loved his Netflix special. It's very funny.
Yes, exactly. You love Netflix story time, and either
it's secret time.
Secret time.
Secret time.
Thank you. Either
secrets or stories.
Tweet at him. Say we want you to either be on Collider Live or have Harloff on your show, and let's get this thing done.